Welcome to Showcase of Nonprofits, where my guests are actively involved in serving our community. Today, I'm happy to have as my guest Timur Holove. He is representing the Slavic Community Northwest here in Gresham, Portland, Oregon area. Timur, I thank you for coming today. I know you're so busy, especially with all that's happening in Ukraine right now. Can you reintroduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me, first of all. And just to kind of give you a little introduction about myself, I was born in Central Asia. My mom comes from a very big Ukrainian family. They ended up in Central Asia during the war, and that's where she met my dad, who's of Jewish heritage, and that's where I was born. And like I mentioned, it's my mom. She's from a very big family, 10 kids, and the country that I was born in, it collapsed and went into this very bloody civil war. And during that time in the 90s, a lot of my relatives, they ended up moving back to the Ukraine, and then from the Ukraine, most of them came to the United States. So fortunately right now, a lot of my relatives, they're here in the United States, but I still have an aunt who's a single mother. She's in the Dnipro region, and also a cousin, and my cousin, he has all boys in his family, 5 boys who are all of military age, and right now they're not leaving. Obviously, they're staying and they're fighting for their country. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm here I live in Gresham, and I've lived most of my life in the United States. I came here in 1998, and by here I mean Oregon, and I never left. And I consider Oregon my home. And I know right now there's a big exodus of the Eastern European and our community going on, and I'm not planning on going anywhere. I love Oregon. It's a beautiful place. We have I consider amazing weather. We have beautiful mountains. Ocean is not far, so I love it here.
And right now it's safe to go out in the street.
Yes.
So can you tell me what your center does in this local community?
Yes, so again, today I'm representing Slavic Community Center of Northwest. It's a nonprofit organization that was started back in 2011, and that's about the time where I joined the organization as a volunteer. And part of our mission as an organization is to help immigrants and refugees that come from Eastern Europe and Central Asia to kind of get better assimilated, and also to be able to serve them and help them become a better part of the civic life here in the United States, but also to help them preserve their cultural heritage. And by that I mean people that come from different countries, they have every right to not forget where they come from, yes, to not forget their roots. So when we have people coming from Ukraine, we want them to celebrate the fact that they're Ukrainian, the fact that they are different than others. And when people come from other parts, Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, they also have that opportunity. But we want to be here for those people and be able to serve them and help them get started, to help them navigate the American system, because it's very different.
What is the hardest part of getting them assimilated into our area?
So language barrier, obviously it continues to be a struggle for people coming here. And fortunately for me, I came here as a young man. I came here when I was 13 years old, but I still had to go through struggle just culturally as well, because again we all came from different parts. We cannot be all molded into this one piece and be called something one, I guess. different regions of former Soviet Union, they were all different. You know,
Okay.
Ukraine,
Right. Oh, yeah.
Ukraine, you know, Russia, Tajikistan. It was very different from, you know, country to country. So when people come here, they experience that cultural shock.
Oh,
And I
right.
remember when I came here in September of 1998. It was like, you know, right when the school was starting. So I remember going, getting, you know, our documents, and in like 2 or 3 days, my aunt was like, you know, well, he has to go to school. So third day here, I was walking through the halls of Gregory Heights Middle School here in
Okay.
Portland, and I just, you know, remembered that the cultural shock, you know, that difference. You know, you have a beautiful school, you know, you have people who are well dressed, you know, you have an opportunity to get some food during lunchtime, you know, you have your gym, you have recess, you have an opportunity to play basketball, and, you know, it's a shock and it's a struggle, and obviously, you know, communicating with people. Fortunately, at that time, we already had, like, you know, some interpreters in school. I remember we had a Russian-speaking teacher, math
Okay,
teacher,
good,
who
good.
was there, kind of helping, you know, younger, also refugees and immigrants better understand what's happening. But you know, when people come of a certain age, like for example, you know, my mom, she never got a chance to learn English.
Right.
She never got a chance to go to college here, to get an education. So, you know, for those people, it's important that there are organizations like ours and like many other amazing organizations that serve the community to be able to provide that linguistic and culturally appropriate services. So, you know, again, language, especially right now, you know, we need to recognize that, you know, we have people coming from different parts, you know, so some of them, they prefer to speak, you know, like Ukrainian or Russian or any other language. And we want to be there to
Good,
offer
good.
those services.
Well, yeah, and I've noticed that in a lot of the immigrant communities that come in, that usually the young adults, the children learn the language, but a lot of times the grandmas never do. They cook, they babysit, and they maybe go to the grocery store and maybe not understand everything that's going on
Yeah.
when they go to buy.
Yeah.
But that's typical. I
Yeah,
see
it
that a
is.
lot.
It is. And again, you know, I was there for my mother as well. You know, my mom, she's a single mom, so when we came here,
Oh,
you know, it was
wow.
just me and two of my sisters and
Okay,
her. So we
wow.
were there for her, kind of
Good.
interpreting
Right,
and
right.
you know, helping her
Right.
whenever she needed to be helped.
Now, how widespread? It says Slavic Community
Community
Center
Center.
Northwest. So what does that include? What does that include? Just Gresham and Portland, or how far widespread is that?
So we serve people in the state of Oregon.
Okay.
So if there's anyone who needs help in our state, we are
good.
there to help them. And I don't know if I already answered your question about, you know, what we do, but
Yeah.
again, prior to the pandemic, we were doing a lot of, you know, cultural events, you know, celebrating everybody's individuality. We put together, you know, the Slavic Festival.
Okay.
It was one of the bigger community cultural events that we have done.
Yeah, and I told you earlier that I went to that Slavic festival. Loved it, because I love borscht, I love perushkis. Perushkis were like 2 for $5. Great, huge pots of borscht.
Yes.
There was a fashion show, there was music, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was one of the better events I've been to in Portland.
Yeah.
And then I guess you had one
Last year as well.
I missed
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, it wasn't as big, and it wasn't as big intentionally, obviously, because of the pandemic. A lot of those events had to stop.
Okay.
And, you know, we were kind of, last year especially, at a point where it was, you know, we saw the COVID die down in the summer, and we felt like, you know, hey, it's going to go away, it's going to be safe. So we started to plan for it a little late. And, you know, we ended up putting it together fairly quick.
Okay.
But the one that you mentioning in 2019 was one of the bigger events,
Yeah.
and again, it's very important to have such events, especially in East Portland, because it's so diverse.
Right,
You know,
yes,
East
very,
Portland,
very.
Gresham, you know, over 70 different languages that are spoken, and you know, again, the name Slavic Festival kind of got stuck with the festival because it was kind of passed on to us by a different organization.
Okay.
But the reality is it represents a wide variety of
Right, and
different
I think
cultures.
that helped because a lot of people with any Slavic roots could feel
Yes,
like
so
that.
it's not, you know, it's not a Russian festival, it's not a Ukrainian festival, it's a Eastern European,
Right.
and also there's other cultures that are being represented. Like, you know, we had people from Armenia, from Uzbekistan,
Okay.
from Belarus, from
wow.
Russia, from Ukraine. So it's very multicultural. And again, you know, East Portland is known as a desert for cultural events, and I think the Slavic Festival kind of fills that gap, at least for this specific
Do you think
community.
you'll do another one?
Well, I sure hope so. You know, such events, they take a lot of resources, and you
Right.
know, usually
Volunteers,
volunteers, definitely sponsors, and equipment, which is very, very expensive.
yes,
You know, we have to pay for parks, we have to pay for restrooms,
Right.
for the sound, for the videos. So, you know, it's, you know, we find grants from time to time to kind of help us offset some of the costs. But again, you know, we wouldn't be able to do it without sponsors. And most of that funds, it goes back into the community, it goes to the artists, it goes to the performers, and you know, a lot of, like, hundreds and hundreds of hours of volunteer time. You know, like the event that you mentioned in the 2018, it took us literally 9 months. So
Well,
it
it
was
was
like
huge.
having a baby.
It was huge.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it's if it was, you know, if we were to count up all the hours that was spent planning it, there is no grant in the world that could cover it. Many people, many hours.
Now you also did a fundraiser for Ukraine just
Yes.
recently.
Yes.
I also got to go to that, and that was enjoyable too.
Yeah, we did, and you know, right now, especially because of the war, because of the Russian aggression towards Ukrainian people, I think it's very important. And one of your questions was like, what do people need right now?
Right.
What the
Yes, yes.
Ukrainian people need
Yes.
right now? And I think it's important to mention that they need a voice, they need to be heard, and they
Okay.
need to be understood. And
Okay.
you know, we definitely, you know, at every level, need to provide people from the Ukrainian community an opportunity to be heard, because it's very important. They need to be provided, you know, support, extra support during these difficult times. And we do what we can. Like I mentioned, I lived in Oregon for almost 25 years. You know, I have a family. You know, I can't leave my family and go to, you know, the Ukrainian border to be there, you know, helping people, feeding people. But there are people out there who are either trying to leave the war zone and they're staying in lines. And one of the stories that I've heard personally is that sometimes people stay in line for like days, and they cannot, you know, to cross to like Romania or cross to Moldavia. And they can't leave the line, because if you leave the line, then you lose your spot. So, you know, there's other organizations that are out there, they're feeding people while they wait, to make sure they at least have that. So, you know, we as an organization, we felt that, you know, the way we can help is by putting together an event where we also were able to celebrate the Ukrainian culture, their uniqueness, because, you know, many times, especially for people who don't know the community, for American people, they just kind of cram everybody together and think that, you know, it's all the same people. But the reality is that, you know, they're not. We're not.
Well, it's like Native Americans. There are a lot of different tribes.
Exactly, different
You know,
tribes,
the Celts.
different,
There's a
you
lot
know,
of different
dialects, different things. So, you know, Russian, Ukrainian language, they're different. The culture is different. So the event that we put together, we wanted to kind of uplift and celebrate that. And You were there. You saw what we did. We had, singers. We
food.
had food that was provided by, local Ukrainian businesses, by Ukrainian people, and we were able to raise funds, and people had opportunity to donate, and we just put together 3 different causes. People were able to choose which cause they want to donate.
Right.
Humanitarian aid, food supplies, and we also had a bakery that was collecting funds to help people evacuate the war zone.
Yeah, and I thought that was a good idea, that people could actually say, well, I want to donate to rescue children, or I want to donate toward medical, and so they could actually choose that. Now, as far as locally, besides monetary things, what are ways people here in the Portland Gresham area can help?
So again, there are a lot of organizations that are also doing fundraising. They're collecting supplies. There's a need for everything. Right now, the biggest issue is getting stuff over there.
Right, and the funds to probably do that, right?
It takes a lot of funds to do that. Like, if you collect food here and then try to ship it there, it's gonna cost a lot more than the actual food. So again, with the way we handle this is that we found other organizations that already have the boots on the ground. So we were able to, provide funds to them, and then over there they were able to purchase things locally and help that way.
If I imagine though, there's a certain point where they can't purchase locally. I mean, or it'd be a distance to purchase.
But it's still, very difficult to get things out there. There's, right now they're collecting tourniquets, so you're able to go out and, buy things, and people I honestly think that monetary donations are the best things right now,
that makes sense.
because again, shipping is very, very expensive.
Wow. Well, then certainly is a need there, and I appreciate you having a heart for this and doing your part. How many people are on your staff?
In our staff right now, we have about 7 people.
Okay. And what type of things do they do? I know you have a radio right in your little building, and
so we're in a shared space. So we share space with a couple of businesses, like the radio station and Afisha. But for the community center, like I mentioned, prior to the pandemic, we were doing a lot of community things, and during the pandemic, we are able to help the community navigate the pandemic. So a lot of our staff, they're helping the community with wraparound support. We had some funds available to us to kind of provide people with culturally specific food. So whenever somebody would test positive for COVID, we obviously had guidelines that required people to stay home. And if we wanted to stay home, we need to be able to provide them. So we were able to purchase culturally specific food and deliver it to them, and make sure that they don't spread the COVID to others. And also, take care of some of their utilities. So, most of our staff, that's what they've been doing.
Well, and I imagine that would be a hard thing too, because I mean, we're getting more diverse that way, but if a person needed to go apply for energy assistance, they would still have that whole language barrier. And how do they get in contact with the worker? So I imagine, you guys are probably pretty busy all the time.
Yes. Most of the time we're busy. During the spike in January, we were just, working overtime and almost 24/7.
Well, I may, if there's time after this, show a few of your clips of what the fundraiser was like and some other things. We'll see how that works out. Anything else you would like to add or comments? Now, I know we can't ask for funds, but you can tell people about your website.
Well, you can definitely check out our website, sccofnw.org, and that's acronym for Slavic Community Center of Northwest. You can also follow us on Instagram, and we have a lot of information there. You can definitely do that, and it's also Slavic Community Center, and you can follow us and kind of stay up to date of things that we have coming up. And we're working on a couple other events and fundraisers, so hopefully we'll get to see you there again.
Yeah. Well, and then also I saw that you have places for people to volunteer. So that would be good if, say somebody can't volunteer monetarily, but they're strong and maybe can carry stuff, or they can advertise or be a foot runner or put up flyers. I mean, there's a lot of things that it seems like volunteers could help you with.
Well, definitely.
Are I'm curious about the libraries have a good percentage of Russian material. Are the libraries growing in like Ukraine materials being out there?
Yes. The way the libraries work here is that we need to request things. So from what I've heard, that there is not a lot of books in the Ukrainian, but they're definitely growing, and I think the more people gonna ask for them, the more,
or even donate them,
or
maybe
donate
too,
them.
if like Ukrainian people have read something in Ukraine, and then maybe they could donate it to the library, or and then I appreciate that you broadcast. Now, is your broadcast to people in Ukraine? Is it local? Where does your radio broadcast go?
So the radio is broadcasting locally, and you can also listen to it online.
And then is it music? Is it news?
It's a platform. It's a community platform. So there is a voice for everybody. So we have, music programs. We have programs with different community leaders. We have news programs. Right now it's a little difficult because of the situation. So, obviously we need to be more inclusive, I guess, and we're doing our best. And again, it's been a platform for many years, and we have opportunity for anybody.
Well, in case any of our viewers don't know, what would they tune into on the dial to hear? What's the name of the radio station, and where would they find it on the dial?
So with the radio station, it's on 1040 a.m.
1040 a.m.
Yes, and again, it's not really associated with the community center because it's a separate thing.
But it's still helpful.
Yes, it
and
is
that's
helpful.
what we're wanting to do here, is ways to help the Ukrainian people right now. So, well, thank you for coming. Anything else you'd like to share, add, anything on your heart real heavy? Or
I mean, I think we talked about most of the things, but again, right now we need to be very respectful. We need to be able to listen and hear, and again, there's amazing Ukrainian leaders out there, and I think that they deserve to be heard as well. And I think that we as a community need to step up and be there for them and help them as much as we can.
Good. Well, thank you, Timur. I enjoyed the visit and getting to know you a little bit more, and I'm sure our community will appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.